Claire, most people walk past nettles, dandelions, and docks every single day and see nothing but weeds. You see nutrition and medicine. What are we missing?
I think we're really missing the connection to the living landscape, which nourishes us and heals us, all for free. That doesn't mean that it's just there for us to take willy-nilly. We do need to be educated on the ethics of using natural plants for food and medicine. And we need an awareness that those living beings are not just there for us, but for a multitude of other species as well. And my work very much is about connecting people to the landscape and developing a relationship with these plants, which are, as I said, they are our allies, they are living beings, they are our kin. And certainly from a nutrition point of view, our wild plants deliver a much higher level of nutrient density than anything that we would buy from the supermarket.
This is like just what we would generally call weeds.
Yes,
Yeah.
Weeds are our wildflowers, actually. There is no such thing as a weed for me at all. Weeds are seen as a nuisance. We have become so disconnected from the landscape that we have decided we're going to label them as a problem, as something that we need to deal with, instead of looking at them as a treasure trove of beings that can really help us to thrive. So I'm very interested in getting people to understand what these allies can bring to our life.
Cool. Thank you very much, Claire. Do a small intro here. So, your name is Claire Thompson Moore. You're a forager, a herbalist, and a soil advocate based in Malin Head, County Donegal. Your work focuses on rebuilding relationships between people, plants, and living soil, sharing practical knowledge on wild food and medicine, encouraging people to become part of the landscape around them. You're co-director of KPM Soils with your husband, Kevin, working on soil restoration, regenerative farming, and composting, helping farmers and community groups understand how healthy soils produce nutrient-dense food. You're 8 months into a 4-year European Innovation Partnership project investigating how slurry can be inoculated with biology to improve soil health and reduce nutrient runoff into waterways. You're the chair of the Inishowen's River Trust, co-chair of the All-Ireland Permaculture Association, board member of Building Bridges for Peace. You have a PhD in nutritional science. You're the first Donegal recipient of the Public Services Innovation Fund for Organic Knotweed Treatment and won a European award in Brussels for community soil health work across 64 cities. Your your proudest achievements are your home-born, home-educated daughters and the happy, loving home you've built with Kevin after years of being through difficult challenges. Thank you and welcome.
Thanks, Ryan. Good to be here.
So we'll start with the weeds. Like, as a child growing up in Ireland, that's what I seen them as. These are weeds. They shouldn't be growing if they were in front of the street, or they didn't look nice, or... But where did that come from? Why do you think that we got to a place where we see some plants as good and some plants as bad?
I think the neat and tidy concept has come into play. There's been a relentless assault on our natural world to be replaced with something very orderly. We see nature as something that we need to control and that we own those spaces. And it's a kind of human supremacy in a funny sort of way. And somewhere along the lines, we lost our way with the old knowledge. And the old knowledge around weeds, wildflowers, as I call them, seemed to go down the maternal line. So it was women who would be taking care of people, looking after the sick children, tending the home garden, that carried that knowledge. And women historically have been castigated for this and put down, and society became very patriarchal. And I think along those times where women were dealing with this, the knowledge was becoming more and more diluted and lost along the way. And I think it's time to resurrect it a little bit and become much more in touch with these weeds and not see them as a problem that need to be solved.
Yeah. So what does the bigger picture look like for you, you know, in a world where there are allies? Like how does that change society, or how does that change the people?
It creates a much stronger community. So it creates a resilience within the community.
So the people become closer, rally together.
People have access to things that can help them, and in return, they need to for free. Yeah. In a world where we monetize everything, that can be important. But also, it's about giving back. So once you understand the value of what these beings give you, you need to be in a reciprocal relationship with them, whereby you respect them and you therefore take greater care of the environment, which means other beings flourish, which actually has a knock-on effect for our communities and our own health. So it's a mutual thriving that happens when you enter into a relationship with the plants. And that's something that I think is missing and would benefit our communities enormously.
You talk about the plants as like an allies, like as a being. So you see them as like a living being.
Yeah. I see them as my friends.
Yeah, your friends.
100% my friends. They're my kin. They're my family.
Yeah.
I get terribly excited in the spring when the buds start coming and the new growth starts, and I'm like, oh, my kin are returning. You know, they're my friends. They're back, and so I look after them because they look after me.
Yeah.
And I will take, but I take respectfully, and I've learnt what I can give back in return as well. So it's a mutual exchange.
Yeah, like I suppose I never really thought about plants as a living being. You know, only in the last few years, like they're seeds, they grow and they're alive and they thrive, and I just never looked at them as an intelligence, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't. They just see it as something that
they're
grows.
Just things that you pass by.
As an object.
Yeah, they are objectified 100%. And I think it's it really changes things when you look at thing living and growing around you as a being in its own right that is part of a much wider intelligent system, actually. I mean, our plants are messengers. They are messengers. They tell us about soil health. They tell us about insect life.
And when you say they tell us, like, so it sounds like you know that. How do they tell you? Like, how do you get the information from them?
Through education, I guess, and observation. Observation is hugely important, and that would be part of the permaculture world that I'm involved with, that you spend a lot of time watching and observing before taking actions. So when I start people off with their foraging and herbalism journey, I always suggest that people pick 1 or 2 plants that they already know. It's usually things like dandelions or nettles or brambles. And I say, watch that plant for a whole 12 months. Watch it through every season. Watch what visits it. Observe the insects. What's the soil like? What's the rest of the habitat where it's growing? And once you start that process, you become very aware and tuned into things. And then just through study, you can also learn more. But books will only take you so far. You need the experience in the field. And so when I say that the plants have messages for us, a lot of that comes just from a deep immersion into that world where you can observe things. And through using them as well, you get to know their taste, you get to know their texture, you get to know the effects that they have. So And in terms of a sort of more observational way of looking at, say, thistles in the landscape, you would look at a thistle and you would ask it, what is that plant telling me? What is its role here? So the messages come from its function in the landscape. So I've been working with Japanese knotweed a lot with the council. And the view there was always that our invasive species are knocking out all of our other native species, that this plant has somehow a thug which has arrived into our landscape and is obliterating all of our native plants. And actually, from working with it for 4 years, I observed very keenly that wasn't always the case. I mean, there's no black and white. There's lots of nuance in ecology. But I observed very much that there were other plants growing alongside. So what was this plant actually trying to do? Why is it there taking over? And I realised that actually it's us. We've wrecked the environment. And so this plant has come in and it's trying really hard to heal the landscape. Japanese knotweed puts down big root system, aerates the soil, builds the soil, big woody stalks, which is carbon, huge green leaves, which is nitrogen. That all falls in the autumn, breaks down, creates more soil in areas which have undergone a huge disturbance usually. So the plant is giving us a message.
Do you know, it's funny that you say that, because I always hear Japanese knotweed, it's bad. I'm always like, well, my view on it was, is it bad? If that was bad, why would it be grown? It's grown for a reason.
It is grown.
It's just because, this is the way I think, is it growing that way because the other plants aren't able to thrive and this one is able to and regenerate, you know? Yeah. I mean, I don't talk to many people. I have never spoken to anyone about it, but this is the way I think about things, because nature always finds its way.
Yes.
It'll always do what it needs to do. And if we just never had any effect, the chances are that knotweed might stop and the other plants would come back over time. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I have observed stands that have been left alone that eventually just become naturalised in place. They don't spread. They reduce down. They cooperate perfectly fine with the other plants around them. But areas where you see it has really taken off, for example, alongside the Glenagana River in Cairn. The Glenagana has had virtually all of the trees removed from the banks. There's been huge gravel levees built up, and Japanese knotweed is basically, woohoo, I can live here. Yeah. You know, my role in Japan would be to grow on volcanic laval dominated slopes where not a lot else can thrive, and it starts to rebuild the environment. And so it's just doing the same thing. So if we don't want it there for whatever reason, then we need to do its job for it. And that was largely what the project that we did with Donegal County Council was all about. It was about looking at the soil that it grows in and looking at the habitat where it's found itself, and basically creating a situation and circumstances whereby the knotweed just doesn't need to be there anymore because we've done its role for it, and replaced it with native plants. Nature abhors a vacuum. You can't just remove something and expect it not to be there anymore. Something has to grow there.
Yeah.
So put in place what you do want and create the habitat that you do want. And so, yeah, that was the sort of hypothesis that we came at that project with, and largely it worked. As I said, there's always nuance. You know, it's not all black and white.
Has that changed the perspective then of, say, the council or the people who are trying to get rid of it?
It certainly helped with the people who were directly involved with the project. I think everybody's really got on board with it, and we've had a lot of interest internationally on the project. That funding has now come to an end pretty much, and we got busy doing a whole load of other things. So we are still monitoring and observing the sites that we worked on, and producing reports and things, but that's pretty much come to an end. But within the council, the department that we were working with, the guys from the CFRAMS unit, the flood relief unit in the Donegal Council, have been hugely supportive and very interested and are fully on board. Yeah, just needs to be disseminated now to people like the roads department.
Okay. Before you got into foraging, though, you had your own challenges, right?
Yes.
Your own health challenges,
Yes.
and that was the start of
my journey.
Yeah. What was it that you were going through?
Well, I had awful ear problems all of my life, in and out of hospital.
When you say all 4 ear problems,
Awful.
Awful. Apologies.
Yeah, awful. Yeah. So a lot of pathology in my ears and a major hearing loss, which caused a lot of problems for me as a child. A lot of isolation, not ever feeling like I belonged anywhere because I just couldn't hear people. And when I was around 30, I got hearing aids, which has helped. Creates different challenges, but has helped with the whole integration into being with people. But yeah, they were not healthy at all. And when I left college, 18, I'd grown up with my fingers in a lot of pies. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was interested in anything and everything. And but I had these really leaky ears. So my ears were discharging constantly. I would walk around with handkerchiefs and just constantly wipe my ears. Always snotty, prone to colds, damp, cold, wet person. And I had been, my mum had done all the usual things, taken me to the doctors, gone off to specialists, in and out of hospital, umpteen operations. And at 18, I hit some kind of slump and I didn't know what I was going to do. I couldn't hear anything. And looking back now, I was probably a little bit depressed, actually. And I didn't know what I was going to do. So I went to my favourite bookstore, which is what I spent a lot of time doing, sitting on the floor of the shop, reading. I was a bit odd. And I took out a book called Fit for Life and I opened it randomly and there was a whole section on ears and ear problems. So, of course, I bought the book and I devoured it. And it was all about nutrition. Now, I'd gone vegetarian at 12, not vegetarian anymore, but I'd gone vegetarian at 12. And so obviously, the meals at home had become very dairy focused. So they were cheese and milk in abundance. And this book was telling me that, well, actually, dairy is probably not great for these ear issues. So I thought, oh, well, what I've got to lose, I'll just cut out dairy then. So cold turkey overnight, no more dairy. And within 2 days, my ear dripping had cleared up. So I was like, oh, something in this. So I then went on to study nutrition and found it fascinating. But alongside of this, I had been brought up in a very ecologically aware household. We were often grilled around what plants we had passed that day. Got into trouble, actually, if we didn't remember a plant that we had seen and identify it correctly. There was a lot of pressure. But as I moved through my nutritional studies, I realised that I had access and knowledge about all of these native plants. And so I thought, I wonder if I can combine these two things together. And that was the start of the journey, really. My own health problems, which tipped me into what my diet was like, which rekindled my interest with the plant world. And so now I combine the two. And I'm not against allopathic medicine at all. I think it can be very, very useful. But we over-rely on it, and it's a fragmented system. Whereas what I love about herbalism, not so much Western herbalism, I'm very interested in Eastern herbalism, Chinese medicine, and I love the integration, the holistic approach, and that we can work with our systems and with these living beings in a holistic way. And if necessary, complement that with conventional medicine if we need to, which can be very valuable,
Yeah.
So I kind of work to combine the two.
Yeah. Do you mind me asking something as well? Just because I'm also curious about people. Something you said personally is like you say that you're odd.
Oh, yeah.
Why do you feel that?
I think I've always felt on the edge, and I know that edges are interesting.
The age of what though?
The edge of society. I grew up with very few friends. I had one friend that I leaned on enormously. I kind of flit about from subject to subject, and my peers would always be, oh, well, I'm going to be this when I grow up. And I was just, how do you know that? I've spent a lot of time outside. I grew up without a television, which put me, again, looking back now, I see that as a really, really positive thing.
Yeah.
I am so grateful that I grew up without a television. But when you're sitting in school and there's 60 other children and you're 8 and the teacher in the assembly says, oh, did anybody see this on the television? And everybody's got a television and all the kids are talking about the programs and you haven't got a clue. It was quite isolating at times. I remember being the only child in the school that didn't have a television.
Do you know, there was a girl in my class too who didn't have a TV, and I was just
lucky.
like, I was like, that is weird.
Yeah.
Do you know, but that was because that's the norm was. But now when I look back, I like that was cool.
Yeah, it was great
because they were very musical.
Yes,
artsy.
Yes. So we did a lot of music. We and I had time for it. Hours were not wasted sitting passively observing, some rubbish on the box in the corner. But then also I developed interests over time and I would throw myself into these topics. I really immerse myself in things and take things very seriously. So, I would be seen as a bit odd at times.
Yeah, but I think we all are.
There's
always that little part of us like,
yeah, it's
we're
a
always
good
trying
thing.
to fit
It's
in.
a good thing.
It's good to be aware of it. I think it's good to own it too.
Yeah, no, definitely. So it makes for an interesting life.
Good. So I know you talked about the plants and the allies and what they teach you, but one of the things you mentioned too was the energetics in the taste.
Yes.
Can you? I was curious about what that.
Expand on that a bit.
Yeah. Like if you understand energetics, and the taste, then
you can match the plants to your specific thing. So a lot of times I get asked, "Oh, I have XYZ health condition. What should I take for that?" And I always say, actually, you tell me who you are and we will find the plants that match you as a person. So it's not about addressing symptoms. It's about bringing bringing the body into a more stable state, balanced state. Now, balance, you never achieve true balance. We're always swaying around a continuum. But I always give my own example when I teach my herbal classes when we talk about energetics, temperature and moisture modality. So are you a hot, cold person? Are you a dry, damp person? And many people can't answer that at all. And I say, well...
How would I figure out if you were to ask me?
Yeah, so I sort of use myself as an example and I say, well, I'm a cold, damp person. How do I know that? Well, I hog the radiator. So in the winter, I'm the one that sat on the fire, blocking the heat from everybody else. If I go somewhere and there is a window open, I will notice it immediately. The drafts drive me bonkers. Like I feel cold, even if we can be on a hot summer's day and there'll be a wee breeze blowing And then most people are like, oh, thank goodness for that breeze. And I'm like, oh, I wish it would just go away. It's making me feel cold. So I'm very prone to the cold. Always got cold feet. So my movement around my body, my lymph and my circulation is sluggish, which is often a sign of dampness. So, and the whole...
So I'm as you're listening, sorry, I'm curious too, because I sometimes get cold feet.
Yeah.
But my body's generally warm.
Yes.
So
yeah, there's nuance always.
Yeah.
So I present people with a questionnaire, and it's about what their tongue is like and what their leanings are with various different body conditions. And from that questionnaire, people can see whether they lean more towards cold conditions or whether they lean more towards hot. And obviously, as we move through life, that can change. So women coming through menopause, for example, will often switch from a cold person to a much more heated body system. So that's more inflammation. That inflammation is a sign of heat.
So I sleep in a really cold room. I like a really cold room.
Very good. Yeah.
So is that because I'm generally, what is it?
A warm person.
A warm person?
It could be, but then I'm a cold person and I prefer a cold bedroom because the central heating makes us all so stuffy.
Yeah. There's something nice about lying under
the
so blanket, cozy and warm, but the room really cold and the window even open.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be me too, even though I suffer from the cold.
Yeah.
Because that's to do with fresh air,
okay.
actually. So as a result of the questionnaire, people can see where they sit with temperature and with moisture. And then from there, you can identify much more easily the plants that you would use. And I use ginger as an example because people can often relate to it. Not that ginger obviously doesn't grow here, and so I wouldn't be out foraging for it, but people will often have it in their kitchen. And so one of the remedies that people suggest for nausea is ginger. Oh, you're feeling sicky, have ginger, particularly around sort of morning sickness. There's this funny stories about pregnant women eating ginger nut biscuits, But actually, if you're a really hot person, ginger can make that nausea worse because ginger is a very, very heating herb. So it wouldn't necessarily be your remedy. Mm-hmm. And that's why I don't tend to suggest particular plants for particular conditions because it doesn't always work out that way. So the plants have the same modalities as people do. So we have a scale, a continuum of heat, cold, damp, dry, and so do the herbs. So thyme, for example, we have a gorgeous native wild thyme, and that's very warming. It's a very warming plant. So those cold, damp days, putting thyme in your stew or thyme tea is very beneficial. When you've got a cold and you're cold and damp, putting thyme in a bowl of hot water with your head over the bowl and a towel over your head is very relieving. Tones up those mucus tissues and soothes your respiratory system, but warms you through. So that's more the way that I would work with the herbs, and then finding the ones out that we actually have in nature. So as far as possible, I try and use native plants in my medicine chest. I do supplement with some global things, but I try not to as much as possible.
So it's like stay kind of close to home, look for the plants close to home. And how does someone actually start? I know you mentioned earlier, go and look for 2 plants that but
that's the best place to start.
Yeah, and what do you do with them? Or how do you even know where to start?
Well,
and for what purpose?
Yeah, I always think it's worth starting with nutrition, actually. So that's why I point people in the direction of dandelions and nettles.
So what would a dandelion give me?
Well, dandelion well, for a start, it's got yellow flower. So we have the doctrine of signatures would be an ancient way of trying to determine in what ways a plant will benefit a person. And yellow is very liver bile.
So
system.
yellow in any plant, is that what you're saying, or just the dandelion?
Well, you have to know your plants, so you wouldn't want to be eating anything toxic, for example. But say dandelion, take the dandelions, yellow flower. It's also, when you taste the leaf, it's very bitter. So bitters enliven our digestive system. And actually, these days, bitter is hugely missing from the Western diet. We've sweetened everything. So our vegetables that we eat have been bred to be sweeter and sweeter. And our wild plant intake has gone, which is where we would have got a lot of bitters from. So green leaves in the wild tend generally to be bitters. The bitter taste, we have bitter taste receptors throughout our entire body. And the bitter taste really fires up the digestive system. And when your digestive system is working really well, you're extracting the nutrients from the food far more thoroughly. So you're getting the nutrition that you need. And we just don't eat bitters. I mean, the nearest people come to bitters is coffee. And then what do they do with that? They put sugar and milk in it, which eliminates the bitter. So I encourage people that way to take the bitters, because it will improve their general health function. And I think that's really important. And yeah, there's no shortage of dandelions. Of course, we have to learn to forage ethically. That's hugely important to me. And our indigenous communities around the world have so much to teach us that we've lost in that respect. When we look at the biodiversity crisis, for example, the world over, biodiversity is crashed. It's a significant problem that is going to cause and is causing us huge problems, as well as obviously being catastrophic for all the other living beings. But the pockets around the world where biodiversity is still thriving are areas where indigenous people are managing the landscape. So they have a lot to teach us about how we use plants, how we don't just take and take and take. Oh, that's good for me, I'm going to have it. That's not the right way to approach it. You need to develop a relationship with the landscape.
I've met indigenous people from the Amazon, and they're all about, like, it's not like it's a take. Yes, they take from the landscape, they take the plants, but they're very, very appreciative. Like, they talk to them. They give thanks back.
Yes.
There's this real appreciation.
100%.
And they're still living in
in those pockets.
Yeah.
Gratitude is so important. Gratitude and sharing. So firstly, yes, you're appreciative and you're thankful and you're respectful. And then actually you have to ask permission. And that's something that we just don't do in our culture. And it's a real shame. And when I first suggest that to people, sometimes people are a bit like, ooh, what, I have to talk to the plants. And it doesn't have to be woo-woo. It doesn't have to be sort of way out of our comfort zone. There's ways of asking that don't involve going up to the hawthorn and saying, hello, little hawthorn berry, could I pick you, please? You don't have to be, I mean, I do that, but you don't have to start there. You can just look at the hedgerow and see the abundance and say, okay, I'm getting a message that there's actually plenty of berries. It's probably okay for me to take some. And then you listen. And actually, when you pick the berries, if you're picking them correctly, the haws, some come away really, really easily in your hand. You put those in your basket. And others, it's like, okay, that's a no then. I'll leave you. And you move on to the next one. And you never, ever, ever take the first of anything that you see. Because you want you want that landscape to thrive. And in foraging, there's often rules created. So people say, oh, don't take more than a third of what's there. However, if you go to a wild garlic patch, and particularly our ways of being, we'll drive to the countryside and then we'll get out, we'll go for a walk, and it's not necessarily our area, and we see a wild garlic patch and we say, oh, I can take a third. If you take a third, but Joe Bloggs down the street has already been in that morning and taken a third, and then somebody comes up the next day and takes a third, you can see how that area will soon become completely decimated because everybody's coming in taking a third. So you have to know your area. You have to know who else is engaging with that section of the land, and pick accordingly. So you never ever take the first. So if you don't take the first, you won't take the last.
So the first
either.
one you see, you don't take that?
No,
go
never.
to the next?
Yeah.
And why is that?
That's because if you leave some, if you don't take that, you're not ever picking the last of it either.
Yeah.
So I generally again, there's nuance because it depends on the abundance in the first place. And so I have a knowledge of plants that I know are thriving and that is fine for people to use, so long as they're still respectful and thankful. Daisies, dandelions, nettles, we don't have any shortage of those things.
Yeah, so I'm also trying to frame it in my mind of because this is how you look at them as a living being. So if something was to look at humans as a living being and just came up and took everything, then we'd be left with nothing.
Yeah.
So I think it's looking at it in a way that, okay, I appreciate that there's something here to take, and there's abundance.
Yeah.
And I'll take some because there's abundance.
Yeah.
And then I know you talk about the speaking to the plant, or at least being grateful, but I think that comes down to, for me, then it's just appreciation, gratitude. If it's just a thought, it's just a feeling of I'm grateful that there's an abundance here 100%. that I can thrive from.
Yeah, and it's about our need. We need to eat. And so do other things.
Mm-hmm.
Birds. So birds and insects and mammals, and so it's sharing as well. It's not there just for us. I think that's something that we all really need to become much more aware of. That our planet is not for people. We are just one other animal amongst many, many, many others, and we all have to share the space. We have to share the plants. We have to share the space. So for me, I always have that mindfulness when I'm out foraging that I think is really important.
Mm. What about the gardens, the Irish gardens? So can we get much from them? Is there on our doorstep called?
Okay, gardens is an interesting one because, again, people have this strange notion of land ownership, and so it's my garden and I will do what I want. And then there's this whole culture around having a very manicured, pretty space. I had a situation with a neighbour once, actually, because I keep my garden quite wild, and because it encourages all kinds of birds and insects in.
And there's biodiversity then.
And biodiversity, which is so important, and also our food supplies are, the wild plants. And she was getting somebody in to spray the weed killer. Huge, great big driveway, manicured lawn, and in with the spray, anything that grew in the gravel, get rid of it. And we were growing our vegetables, and spray drift is a real problem. And so we sort of said to her, look, we'd be quite happy to help actually weed your drive so you don't use a spray, because we don't want our vegetables sprayed, into contact with that. And as well as the fact that the spray affects the biology, the living beings which also live in the soil. Oh, okay. She said, well, no offence. She said, but I like a pretty garden. And it hit me in that moment that pretty is actually very subjective words. What is pretty? And it's like I wanted to just say, well, I think my garden's prettier than yours, and because mine's wild, it has butterflies, bees and insects and flowers, and yours is just sterile and boring. And I was really judgmental in that moment, and I was like, oh. So
but you didn't say this.
I didn't know. I was very tempted, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't actually, because normally I'm a bit too direct. But anyway, something would just come out of my mouth, But no, so that struck me as an awareness and an education piece, and that leaving sections of our gardens for other beings is sharing the land. It's sharing that space. And there's a fantastic woman down in Wexford, Mary Reynolds.
I've heard of her.
Yeah, she is doing sterling work at encouraging
Joanne Fullerton
people.
might have mentioned her to me.
Yeah, she encourages people to leave space for the wild. And it's so important. It's really important, because what's happening is that our ecosystems are being decimated patch by patch by patch. Another building, another load of clearing, another manicured garden, and all of those patches of destruction add up. So her model really is to regenerate by allowing the patches to thrive again, to create wild spaces that all join up together. Like hedgehogs, for example. Hedgehogs have hugely fallen numbers because we've put tight fences alongside our gardens. They can't travel. Then they go along the roads, they get squashed. There's no habitat for them because everybody tidies everything away, and they need a bit of beautiful, chaotic mess of branches and leaves and brambles and covered areas, And who doesn't love Mrs. Tiggywinkle? Oh, look, a wee hedgehog. But actually what you're doing is creating an environment where they can't thrive. But people don't think about it. They just want to do what they want to do on their patch,
But how do you educate people on that?
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard, and we just have to keep going. It's one step at a time, and any time that I have the opportunity to speak out, I'll take it.
But
the
I feel
other
like
thing,
that
people
would
don't want to offend other people
but
either.
I feel like that would need to be taught in schools, from a young age, of like, we talk about wildlife, but also the implications of like, putting up a fence and stuff like that there. It does, I suppose it does. I never thought about that.
No. And there are people who are doing good work in schools. But it's slow, change is always slow. We haven't got here quickly. Well, in terms of the earth, we have got here relatively quickly since the Industrial Revolution, but turning the ship around is quite a long, slow process. It's very frustrating for me, to be honest. I get frequently annoyed about it.
The modern medicine path, then, that didn't work for you, and you went down with I would call it the plants. Yes. Herbalism.
Yeah.
Have you encountered others then that have benefited from the work that you do, that it has helped them, or have like typical challenges people would have?
Yeah. I mean,
what kind of conditions?
Different things. So starting at the basic level, where people have attended my walks and classes and then gone on to study themselves and help their families, that's been really encouraging to see. I love that. And then, people have come to me with all sorts of conditions, skin conditions that I've made up a cream for that's healed eczema and skin rashes.
And what's the cream made up of?
Well, kind of depends a little bit on what they need, but generally things like chickweed, which is growing right now. It's an early spring green that we can eat. That's very, very soothing and cooling. So it removes the inflammation,
and
the heat from the skin.
This is for eczema?
For eczema, yeah. a lot of people.
Am I saying it wrong?
No,
Okay.
no. I think Irish people say eczema.
I'm like, geez, I always thought it was eczema.
Yeah, no, a lot of people say eczema. Yeah, no. So polytunnels, a lot of people with polytunnels have chickweed growing in the bed. And again, they see it as, oh, why have I got this weed here? I want to grow my carrots or whatever. And I'm like, whoa, that's an amazing nutritional source of vitamin C. And it's great for skin conditions. It's very soothing. It's great for the digestive tract. Now eat it,
Yeah.
So I'll make a cream out of that.
Just that alone?
No, I'll sometimes put plantain in it, which is another.
Yeah, I'm plantain. That's like a banana, isn't it?
Lanceolata.
It's like a larger banana, is it?
No, that's the plantain banana is a different. Okay. So we have a native wild green called plantain.
Okay. What does that look like?
It puts up, right, well, so there's two main types. One has got a long leaf and one has got a very round leaf. And if you turn the leaf over, you'll see ribs going through the back of it. And then towards the end of the summer, it puts up a long stalk with a brown seed flower head on the top. And the plantain with the round leaf has a much longer flower head, which is more green in colour, and the plantain with the long leaf, the lanceolata plant, has a smaller brown seed flower head. Now, I take those flower heads, when we were kids actually, we used to take the stalk and wrap the stalk around the seed head and flick it at people. It was quite good. Ping, got you. But I'll take those heads and I crumple them up and I put them in my bags of flour because they're a huge source of vitamin B, the B vitamins, and just wee simple things like that anybody can do. And those are everywhere.
How do you make it into a cream?
So I will take the leaf and I macerate it in oil.
What kind of oil?
Well, now, if I'm making medicine to sell, I obviously use a very good quality organic oil. Olive oil is very heavy and strong, so a lot of people don't like that. I'm like, a little bit, get over yourself. But generally, you can try and find some other organic oil.
Like just any kind of oil? Or?
My point is, if you're prepared to eat it, then it's obviously good enough for you to put on your skin.
Yeah. So
anything that you feel happy eating. I mean, I wouldn't eat cheap sunflower oil from the shop, for example. I just don't have that for health because I don't think that's very good for you.
So people could make that at home. They could,
could use that. Yeah, coconut oil,
and then just make that into a cream, and then rub it on, and it does help with eczema.
Yeah, so I soak it.
Yeah.
In oil for a few weeks. Keep it in a cool, dark cupboard. Shake it whenever I remember. Always keep remembering to check that all of the plant material is submerged in the oil, because if you've got any plant material that's up in the air and there's no oil cap on it, that starts to go mouldy and turns your oil rancid, and you just don't want that. It's just not going to be. So you have to make sure all the plant material is kept submerged in the oil. And keep giving that a shake, keep topping it up with oil, strain it after a few weeks, and that's a medicinal oil.
What other conditions, like typical people they would have, like?
Well, I had I've had a few people actually with infections in teeth, where you can see that the infection is tracking up the face.
When you see, you
can see the redness, the infection tracking. Yeah. And I've treated that with a tincture that I make from a lichen. So that's an alcohol-based medicine, and a lichen from the tree. Now, don't take it from the tree because it's old man's beard.
A teeth one is funny because generally if a tooth is, if there's a problem with it, it's probably because you need a fill-in or something.
Yeah, it needs to come out.
Yeah, so this is like, would it be a temporary?
Yeah, it's to reduce the infection so that then the dental work can be carried out.
Yeah, because having a toothache, I mean...
It's horrendous.
Yeah, you need to go fast, okay.
Yeah. So you do need to go fast. And, I always say to people, if the infection is spreading too far and going up towards the eye of the brain, get to the hospital. Don't be messing about. But, in those instances, infections can be brought down with a lichen that grows everywhere around Inishowen, because we're very blessed to have clean air, generally speaking. So this usnea grows in forests where the air is clean, and you have to collect it from the ground, not from the tree, because it grows so slowly. So again, you understand the plant and you respect the environment. So you only take it appropriately, and you only ever take what you need. So I'll make a natural antibiotic using that. It's quite a laborious process, but it's good fun. So I've used that quite successfully. I'm trying to think what else.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if there's any, personally, not to my knowledge, but I don't have any conditions, so I'm generally healthy, but I'm just curious as well, what are common issues that some listeners may have,
Yeah, well, there's all the common cold things, flus.
Actually,
I would use
I had a head cold the
elderberry.
last week, so I did.
Yeah.
But I didn't take anything for
No.
it. Just runny nose,
colds,
mostly.
Colds
and a bit of a
come
cough.
and go. Yeah, just like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tail
They
end of it
come
now.
and go. They can.
So what could
generally
have
be
I
left.
done for that?
Well, I usually take some form of elderberry, which I collect in the autumn. We need far more elder trees. I don't know why there's so few. But the elderberry on the tree hangs in a drupe. And I would collect those, and I make a syrup with those. And that's very effective for colds and flus.
What's it doing?
Right. So what the elderberry does is it interrupts the replication of the virus. So the virus is in. It's trying to replicate itself and grow and spread. And what the elderberry does is it prevents that from replicating itself. So it doesn't stop you getting the cold or the flu, but it shortens the duration and makes it less
intense,
uncomfortable. Yeah, less intense. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll use things like that. Yeah. And then earaches. A lot of kids get earaches. So I would use a plant we have called mullein for that. That's a really tall flower spike, yellow flowers. And I'll use those to make an oil again for earache.
What about
all sorts of things?
Yeah, I'm just curious. What about any other chronic conditions? Because eczema would be somewhat chronic,
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, eczema. Yeah. Well, there's arthritis.
Yeah.
Again, that is always worth looking at diet. Taking it.
A lot of it does come down to diet too.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when it's a chronic issue.
Yeah.
Taking the inflammation down from the body. So that's using cooling herbs.
And how do you know it's cooling?
You have to just learn it.
So how do you, obviously, I assume that there's knowledge that have been passed down through generations from trial and error?
Yeah, a lot of it is just historical knowledge.
And stuff that you're working with, is that based on passed down, or has there been things that you've discovered yourself?
Oh no, I've done a lot of learning.
Yeah.
I'm always learning. I love learning new things.
So your own trial and error.
Yeah, definitely, especially on myself. And when you're working with people,
and no chance, I'm just saying, no chance of poisoning yourself.
No.
How do you,
right?
If there's doing something that doesn't exist, that there's information on it.
We're quite lucky in Ireland that our poisonous plants base is low. The chances of you poisoning yourself with a wild plant, generally speaking, quite low in Ireland. Now, there's some that are fatal. You wouldn't want to be eating those. And again,
what
that's
are they?
Just knowledge. Well, we have hemlock water dropwork plant, which I think has hit the news recently because the root has been exposed, washed up on shores and rivers, and they look sort of a bit parsnippy almost. So people would like, oh, that's a wild parsnip, but that's fatal if you ate that. Grows all round Inishowen in absolute abundance. So you have to learn. I often, when I take my people out foraging, people come I say it's sometimes more worthwhile learning which the poisonous plants are than the others, because then you know what not to eat and you can experiment with the rest. So it's, probably more a quicker way of learning. But a lot of it, people are very afraid of our wild plants because we have lost that knowledge. So again, it goes back to just starting small, and people want to run before they can walk. And I'm like, look, I'm 54. I've been doing this forever, like with my dad, my granddad. And I'm still learning things. So you have to just start somewhere and build it up slowly. And really, if you can even just get 6 plants that 6 plants take you 3 years to thoroughly know 6 plants. And they'll do so much to help you, so long as you're also giving back to the environment.
Yeah.
So that's why I always say start with the ones that actually most people will know already. Yeah.
Yeah. So you grew up in England?
I did, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you moved to Ireland what year?
I think it was around 2005.
What was that like coming from England
That was
to
quite
Ireland?
tricky, actually.
Yeah. What was tricky?
I had I grew up near a forest in the Midlands in England and Shropshire, Worcestershire border. Absolutely gorgeous part of the world, abundance of trees, nowhere near the coast. And I moved out to Inishowen, and I was raised on Irish folk music. So my dad would
That's
have been...
like trad, right?
Yeah, a lot of trad music and folk roots music of all nations, but particularly Ireland.
Oh, your dad was from...
Yeah, so my dad would have been a folk musician, and he was very interested in Ireland politics, always siding with what he viewed as the underdog or oppressed people. He was very interested in social justice. So that was kind of the culture that in the house that I grew up with. And I didn't realise it academically at the time. It was just absorbed. That was just how we lived. He used to discuss endless interesting topics at the dinner table, and we were encouraged to always think and look at issues. So as
opposed to just taking the narrative?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. He was like, well, what do you think? And we had to form opinions, It was good. It was good. But I still had this view that moving to Ireland would be nothing but positive, easy peasy, would take me probably 12 months to connect with people. And that wasn't the case at all. So I landed in Clonmany in a little hamlet, which I absolutely loved. There was just 4 or 5 other families who were all incredibly welcoming and lovely people. Loved the bones of them. They were great. But I felt very isolated. So I was pregnant at the time, and I have home births. So my boys in England were born at home. So I have home births, and I breastfeed for a long time, and I home educate. And I was like, I suddenly felt tribeless. I wasn't sure I was ever going to fit in, and it wasn't at all as easy as I thought it was. And it was probably a good 4 or 5 years before I felt happy. The home birth situation was desperate. I'm still really mad about that.
When you say mad, like...
Angry.
Why?
Because it was so difficult to
have it
to
here
have
in
this.
Ireland. Okay.
And I had to do all sorts of crazy things. In fact, I didn't end up having my baby in Donegal because there was no option to have her at home. My friend actually had the last home birth baby with support in a showing.
So was it that I don't know what you'd call it, but like the Irish Health Service, were they not the HSE?
They wouldn't support it at all. No.
Okay.
And there was no way I was going to hospital.
You pushed for it,
yeah. Well, I ended up going into the north.
Yeah.
So I went to somebody else's house and had a house birth, but it wasn't my home, so it wasn't right. It didn't feel right. So that was very distressing for me. And then the home education scene was small, but the friends that I made there were really good people, really good friends. So it just took time. It just took longer than I had envisaged. But one thing that kept me going was the foraging. So I started that off again pretty quickly. But of course, I then found I was on the coast. So I had fewer trees and a coastal region. So I had to learn the new plants, actually.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about the homeschooling because I'm curious about it.
Yeah.
Pros and cons, if there are any cons.
Yeah.
Like, what does it look like for your kids? Because there's I'm going to say one of the cons, but maybe it's not, is you don't have the social element of your kids going to an environment with other kids.
Have you seen socialising in school?
I've been to public school, so it's all I know. But I'm going to say that, and I'm not against homeschooling. No. I went to public school, but I've met great people there and I have great friendships from there. And I look at them times and think they're great, you know. The education is a different side of it. But I'm also curious about like what homeschooling would look like if I had been, I'm sure there's positives,
Well, in the home ed world, we say there are many ways of home educating as there are home educating families. Everybody does it sort of slightly differently. For me, I was what we call a radical unschooler. So for a start off, I always say home education rather than homeschooling. Homeschooling, I think, has come through from it's more of an American term. And I was not going to be replicating school at home. So I see education and schooling as two very different things. And I think what our public schools offer is schooling. And I'm far too much of a free spirit to be going down that road. So I wanted my children to have far more experiences. I didn't want them to be coerced into what somebody else had decided they needed to know that month or year. I didn't want them to be in an environment where they were only with their own age group. I don't think that's a very realistic life pattern, that we only sit. I don't spend all my time with other 54-year-olds, So I wanted them to have a much wider life experience. Now, I think that's... I think the caveat with that is that you yourself have to be living your life. You have to be living an interesting life. And that I very much saw them as a part of the family. They were my family, and we did interesting things together, and we did life learning. So it was just whatever we woke up and decided we were doing that day is what we did. I never once sat them down to make them do reading or writing. So they would have learned those things by osmosis. Because I read a lot, so I read to them a lot. So they learned to read because that's what we did in our house.
And then how do you integrate socially?
Yeah, so we because we did so many interesting things, your social life is actually the people that you're spending your time with. So we had swimming lessons. They joined in your space circus. They went to gymnastics. They we met up regularly with other home educating families.
And how did you even find the network of them? Because I don't even
there
know
is
any.
a national there's
there's a community of it?
community.
A network,
and you're not long finding
Yeah.
out who is also doing this.
And is there much of it in Donegal?
There's a fair bit, yeah.
And in Inshone?
In Inshone, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a fair few, more and more now. And as I say, everybody does it differently. So some people do classes at home, and I opted to not do that.
When you say classes at home, like as in...
They sit with books, and they have a
So
curriculum.
from their parents?
Yeah. And there's an element of privilege with it, because you have to have...
And how do you decide what you're teaching?
Well, I didn't ever teach anything. I just lived, and they just lived.
Okay.
And they would,
So
children want to learn.
Yeah.
They're curious about life. So they ask questions. And if you don't know, you say, I don't know, let's go and find out. And you go to the library, or you use the internet, or you talk to other people that are doing it.
And what about like maths and stuff?
Yeah,
generally
maths.
maths.
A bit of a down point in our house.
Yeah. Because maths is generally something that is beneficial to life.
Well, yes and no. See, to me, the maths that you need to know is, have I got the right change? How much fuel does my car tank hold? How do I weigh these ingredients to make this recipe?
So you're still teaching it.
Yeah. I want to put a cupboard there. How do I measure get the right size? So that was the maths that we did in our house. And all of my children ended up in school around the age of 15.
When you say ended up like in secondary school?
Yeah. So they all decided to go at various different. So it was all around the age of 15 that they went in.
Because that was where I was going with this then, as the end is like, if you want to go to university, you need some form of leaving cert. You can't get in. Yeah. I mean, maybe you can. To my knowledge.
Get in.
Okay. So, right.
So it depends what you want to do. So my point is that if a child realises that they want to be an accountant and they need X, Y, or Z in order to get to college to do accountancy, then they're motivated to do it because that's what they've chosen to do. It's not somebody forcing them. And it's never, ever too late to learn. There's a brilliant home ed author, John Holt, who wrote a book called It's Never Too Late to Learn. And he picked up the cello, I think in his 70s.
What's the cello? The big, huge guitar.
Yeah.
It's not a guitar, but it's
the violin, the viola, the cello, and then a double bass.
The cello's the huge one, right?
It's smaller than the double bass.
Okay, but it literally stands like that, no?
Yeah, you sit. And you have it between your knees, and
like a big violin, then.
Yeah, rather large. Yeah, rather large violin. So it's a stringed instrument, but the point is that if we want to do something badly enough, we'll find a way to do it. So my eldest daughter went to circus school in London. She got into that. It's a university. It's affiliated with the University of Kent. She sat her junior cert, she went into school at 15, hardly attended a class for the first few months, then decided she was going to knuckle down. And then it became exam week. And she came down to school came down the stairs in her version of the uniform. And I said, what are you doing? I thought it was exams this week. She said, yeah, I'm going to sit them. And I said, what? And she said, yeah, I'm going to sit the exams for the crack. And I said, who sits exams for the crack? So she went and she passed them, apart from Spanish, because she hadn't been to any classes. You can't expect to learn a language if you're not going to show up. So that was fine. And she got in on her performance work. So...
What do you mean performance work?
So she did the practical,
the circus, yes,
and passed the audition, and so they accepted her, even though she only had a junior cert.
Yeah,
and so obviously that's not going to apply for all. You couldn't go and be a medical student on a junior cert,
Yeah, because the exams you may be very well versed in life experience, but like you have to know what they're trying to test you on.
Yeah. But for me, that was less important than having a holistic childhood with freedom And actually, when my eldest daughter went to school to see whether she was going to go in, one of the teachers actually said, "Why are you giving up all your freedom to come here?" And I thought that was quite an interesting question. And she said, "I don't want to get to 27 and be forever wondering what this school situation was that all of my other friends do." And so they said, "Oh, so you just want an experience then?" And she said, yeah, I just want to know what it's like." And they said, "Well, I hope you have a very good experience." And she said, "Well, don't worry about that. If I don't like it, I shall just leave again." And that was the way she conducted herself at school. She was like, "I'm choosing to be here. I don't have to be here." So she got out of it what she wanted. But to be honest, the social side of it, it got to the point where they were tweens and I couldn't keep up with their social life. In-home education. Yeah. I mean, every day.
Well, they have a phone
somewhere.
now, so
yeah, I didn't give them phones till they were till later. But I think Anya was 14 before she got a phone. So, but they every day with other kids in home ed, and they were friends that they chose. They weren't just
when you
bundled
say every day
together.
in home ed. Sorry, like were they home ed with a group, or was it just the two?
Yeah, there was a home ed community.
Okay, so
we would meet up with these other kids every day. It was exhausting. I couldn't keep up. I'm not actually very sociable. And I was like, "Oh, jeebus, here we go again. Another day out, But we did loads of really interesting things. And if you ask them now, they'd probably be down on home ed because they're teenagers. It doesn't matter what I do, whatever I cook, however I do the laundry, whatever it is, they've something to say about it. But hey, we've all been raised to have opinions, so I don't mind, and they'll probably come round in the end, So they've had the best of both worlds, probably.
Yes, yes.
But I'm not very supportive of the schooling system, Fanula comes home with Christopher Columbus stuff, and I'm, that rubbish,
Yeah.
But
it's not for everyone.
No, and I just think it's out of date. I don't think they keep up with
a lot of people go to school and they leave out, and they're it's not a one size fits all.
And not many children actually relish the thought of going.
No,
I wanted children who were loving their life, not getting up in the morning and getting shouted at for getting their breakfast down them as quickly as possible to get out the door and these funny clothes and then go and sit down all day inside. That was just not my idea of a childhood at all.
Are you aware of the school? I don't know the name, but I think there's one in Belfast and there's one in Dublin and there's one in Sligo where you go there as a kid, but they don't teach you. They figure out what you want to learn.
Yes.
What's the name?
Yeah, there's
it's this guy. I think or maybe it's a woman.
Yeah, there's one in Sligo for sure.
But anyways, do you know how it works? Yeah,
yes,
I find that very interesting.
Democratic school.
Is that what it is called now? But so the way it goes is you go in and whatever you are interested in, you get to build that. Yes. But through building that, they teach you all the different, whatever it is. Could be history, could be maths, it could be science.
Yeah.
But you get to be creative. So because that's one thing schools can be very limited on is your creativity.
Yeah. And I like to integrate the subjects. So rather than separating maths out into its own subject or English into its own subject or geography, I love the idea of merging all of those together so that, baking is art, it's nutrition, it's maths, it's science, it's geography if you're doing ethnic food. You can incorporate so many, there's so much scope, I find it fascinating. But I love learning stuff, so that's just how we lived our lives.
You said that learning plants is like learning a language.
Yes.
So I'm curious, do you speak any other languages? No?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, what do you speak?
French. I was brought up speaking French. My parents were linguists, so they were both French and German teachers. So we did très bien. We did très bien. We did French quite a lot. and there was a lot of German in the house as well. And then with singing, you're often singing in another language. So I love the different pronunciations of words and understanding the roots of words. And language is fascinating. But plant language.
What is like?
Well,
because I'm learning a language at the minute. I'm trying Spanish.
Oh, right. Okay.
So but when you said, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. What does that look like learning?
Yeah. Well, for me, I think learning the language of the plant is all about the energetics, which we spoke about earlier. It's about learning about the habitat, where that plant likes to live, what it needs to thrive, what the messages are, what the plant's function is in that ecosystem. And when you learn all about the plant, that's why I say to sit with a plant for a year. So, because you learn all of those.
Are you seeing what's growing around it, what's happening around it, the insects?
How it develops, how it grows, what the seeds are like, and what its uses are, both for us and other beings. And so that is like a language to me. And connecting with it, and
connecting with the land.
With the land and the plants, and
because we are somewhat disconnected, I suppose.
We are totally.
We walk out and we don't really. Yeah. I mean, I sometimes I think, like, how do you know if you're connected? Even, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I
go
for a walk, and I do feel connected, but I just appreciate the nature that's around me.
Yeah.
And that to me is a connection.
Definitely.
I mean, it's everyone has different levels, I suppose. And
I think in COVID we really came into our own. Everything stopped. We had this forced break from our frenetic paced life, which we swore we'd never go back to, and here we are. But anyway, and people were suddenly hearing the birds because the cars weren't going, and the weather was really good, if you remember, as well. So people were getting out. There were less people around, and I think appreciation of nature when we were in a confined situation went up so much, and it was joyous to see, actually. And now we seem to have sunk back to new levels of desecration. Actually, I'm seeing so many hedges being ripped out, and we're back on with the program of economic development, and so I'm seeing quite a lot of destruction, and all the latest reports keep coming out one after another about how we're still losing so much wildlife, and it's a bit depressing.
Yeah. So I would somewhat call myself, I don't know how to phrase this, like, so I do like business, and I do like to create, but I also know that I like to be conscious as well. So I don't know if I'm in, like, I'm conscious, but I'm also trying to be creative, which does mean that there's the creation of products through, unnatural materials, for example, plastic,
Yeah.
But like, how do you find, like, how do I find that balance,
Yeah.
Like, for example, I have a product there, a phone charger that I launched, but my goal is for every charger I sell, I want to plant a tree. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's just like, how do you find
giving back.
I don't even know if planting that tree is how can you say, giving back more? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just like, we are a species too that is about, I suppose, evolving, but I don't even know. Is that the right thing? How far do we go?
Yeah.
Where does it end?
I'm not sure we are evolving anymore.
But in a different way.
I don't know. I think we might be going downhill a bit quite
with
rapidly.
Technology, though, like technology evolving.
Yeah, I'm not
are we as humans? Are we de-evolving? You know what I mean? I don't even know if that's a word, but
well, I mean, the replacement of people and creativity by technology is actually a real threat. It's something I'm hugely concerned about. I mean, all this AI business just drives me mad. And, I'm out there teaching foraging, and people are there with their apps, and I'm like, put your app away, actually look at the plant and, talk to it and listen to it and have a real human experience rather than seeing something through another device, which may or may not be accurate, by the way. So, and what I've noticed with people using technology with foraging is that their retention of information is really poor. So they'll see a plant, they snap it on whatever app, and they don't go any further than that. They've got the instant gratification of being told what it is, and that's it. Whereas with more organic methods of learning, where you're immersed with the plant, you remember it so much more easily. You learn what family it is in. Like, plants live in families, and
So is that of the same species or multiple species?
yeah. So you'll get
Because usually you do see them in a group.
yeah, but it's like. So you have different plants, different species of plants, but they're in the same family of plants.
Okay.
So they share characteristics. And, and learning about families of plants gives you so much more information. And I think that learning through doing and experiencing is so much more thorough than just being told the information. It's the same with the process of writing. So when you write something down, you integrate it into your body in a much deeper way than if you just read it or you're just told it. So I love to explore all that as well, but yeah, technology is, we all use it. I have a phone. Took me a long time to get one. I held out, called myself a Luddite for a while. And I'm still not, I hate the draw it has on you. The difficulty in putting it down, and that feeling that you've lost something if you haven't got it with you, And we've forgotten how to function without technology, and God help us when the grid
double-edged
goes
sword.
down. Yeah, it is.
And I think it's if you can use it in a healthy way.
Yeah,
tool. Yeah, and that is exactly what it is.
I don't see many people able to do that. That's what worries me.
It's probably because we're so easily. I mean, the way I look at a phone is you're always contactable if something.
Yeah, it's a nightmare
if needed. No, but I mean, let's just say something goes wrong. That's the benefit.
Yeah, but what did
we're
we do before?
I know we're too available now.
Yeah, we are.
There's so many different means of contacting.
100%.
Can be noisy,
and you can't do anything without it. What was it? I had to. The Building Bridges for Peace charity, I have to register with the Charities Commission in the UK. So I already have that for the Republic. So that's fine for the other things I'm involved with. So the UK one, so I had to go onto a website. I had to download something else onto my phone. So I had to use the two things together. And I had to fill out something on the website. And then I was supposed to be sent a code. But I couldn't access the website until I'd authenticated something. And then I didn't get the code through to the phone. So you press resend on the computer and it still doesn't come through to your phone. And I've been trying to do this for months. Can you phone anybody? No. And it's I was the same. I had to upload some documents for my car insurance. And there wasn't anybody to ring. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I struggle with so I'm a little bit reluctant when it comes to technology and business, really. Everything we use, everything has come from plants at some point or another.
And that plants includes trees.
Yeah, trees, and then when you look at the destruction, the tar oil sands and the desecration of the forests and the logging and the killing of indigenous peoples, because us in the Western world, we want more and more and more, and we're just never happy with the abundance actually that we have. So we're wrecking our own place, and then we're also destroying other people's. So there's a lot of ethics there for me, and social justice and all sorts of things. So it's a big melting pot of different aspects,
Yeah, the thing about it is too is just like plants don't really care, because if we just destroy the planet. We're only destroying it for ourselves.
Yeah,
they'll
100%.
just come back
it'll
and
just
thrive even more.
revive itself, however slowly. But
Do you see a future that things will come into balance?
no.
No. So like, I
Yes.
would be optimistic.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I was
I
optimistic.
live with hope. You know.
Yeah, no, I don't do hope. And I know that a lot of people do. And so I have to tread carefully. And I'm not a total doomer because I don't think that helps. And I made a decision that I was going to carry on doing the right thing for the right thing's sake. There's a lot of things in my life I'm really not happy about my contribution to the destruction of the world, and it's the society we live in. So there's that real grating there between the way that I would truly be happy living versus what I actually have to cope with in my day-to-day life. So there's a lot of chaos and a lot of conflict there within me. But as far as I can, I like to just keep going, keep talking about the issues, keep trying to offer practical solutions. But in terms of the planetary boundaries, we have way gone past our sort of our ability to operate within those boundaries. We have overshoot day. I can't remember what it is for Ireland, but I'm pretty sure it's coming up soon, which is whereby the country has used up everything that it would be allocated to it in terms of sustainability. I'm really not a fan of the word sustainability. What are we sustaining? What we're trying to sustain is already very, very broken. We really need to regenerate. We need to do massive amounts of habitat restoration, including and especially the soil.
Yeah, tell me more about the soil.
Yeah, so
could I call you a soil doctor? And I use that term because it's like you're trying to heal the soil.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. So
what's wrong with the soil in the first place?
We travel a lot around farmland, looking at people's grasslands and crops.
So do farmers ask you to come?
Yeah.
Is this like any farmer, or why do they ask you in the first place?
I think because there is becoming more and more awareness around soil health being vital for...
So they're realising that having healthy soil is going to be good for
them. Yeah. For
and
their animal health or for their yield.
Are they farmers that are using maybe chemicals or...
Generally, at the moment, it's the organic farmers who are...
So they're trying to grow rich crops, plants.
They realise that the soil isn't great, and what can they do about it? And they want to know, actually... Kevin studied with the Soil Food Web School and Matt Powers, so he has this vast knowledge, which I never be able to keep up with, about all of the biology that's in the soil. I mean, it's a fascinating topic, and I'm really getting into it. But he's the one that's very knowledgeable on that and does the microscopy. So he'll take a soil sample and look at it under the microscope and perform all sorts of various other tests as well that determine the quality of the life in the soil. But basically the farmers will contact us because they want to know. They want to know, well, what is my soil life like? What is my soil health like? And what can I do to improve it, both for the health of the crop, the grass, and of course the animal. The nutrient of all of it is determined by the quality of the biology in the soil. So we go out and do consultations, and then we grow the biology that should be there. Now it'll always be richer in the compost.
So when you grow it, how do you grow something? You look at the soil and you go, okay, do you look under a microscope?
Yeah, so he performs the microscopy.
So it takes a lump out of just
all over the soil.
or
It takes random samples from you can see when you look at, say we're looking at a grassland, we're looking at a few acres of grassland. You can see by looking at it that area is different to that area. So he makes sure that he'll take a sample from different spots to represent the whole, and then he analyzes that. And then produces a report for the farmer and says, well, actually, you're really low in fungi, and actually your bacteria is not very diverse. And I only saw one nematode, and unfortunately, it's the nematode that eats the roots of your grass. So you're out of whack. Your balance is way off. And so we make composts, which the farmer can then use to reintroduce biology to the soil. But
you have to grow the biology
we
first?
do, yeah, in a compost medium.
So you grow it in a small container first?
No, massive, great big.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But it has to start small, I assume?
Well, you use all the ingredients, have the biology on, and then our mother pile, which was the very first pile we created in 2021, I think it was, has 1 teaspoon from an old forest in it. And that 1 teaspoon inoculates the whole pile, because as the material breaks down, you have a growth of microbes.
But
that's
hold on,
what's
1
breaking
teaspoon on how much soil?
Oh, no, that's in our mother pile compost. And then so we use a little bit of our old compost in each new compost.
Okay, understood. But I mean, if you're creating a new compost and you're taking a teaspoon, like, how do you spread that across a large amount?
You just put it in the pile.
On
The
top?
biology will do
So
the work.
it'll start...
Yeah, it'll just
Yeah,
multiply.
it'll just... okay.
As it's decomposing.
How long does that take then?
Well, our Johnson Sue heaps, which is a particular method of composting, are static for 12 months.
Yeah, I was going to say, it couldn't be a few weeks.
No, although our hot compost, which is a different method of making it altogether, for our Japanese knotweed project, I think we made 18 tons of compost in 6 months or something. It was huge amounts. So that's a very fast composting method, and it's still very, very full of life. It's still very, very good. That's more particular about the ratios of ingredients, particular recipe that you would use. So it's a fascinating topic. But then we would use that compost to then put out on the land. But it has to go hand in hand with landscape management changes and animal management changes. You can't just put the biology out and then carry on behaving in a way that kills the biology. It's a waste of time and money and energy altogether. So the education piece then around regenerative farming that goes with the application of biology, because you often need air in the soil and sunlight and animals moved in a particular way and the water managed correctly. And so
how are you educating though the farmers? Because obviously the people come to you, they're kind of somewhat educated.
Yeah, they're usually already on the regenerative journey. So they have already some good information from going on. The ETB, for example, run an introduction to regenerative agriculture course in. Are
you doing any classes though, or is there any groups in Inishowen or Donegal?
We thought about doing. We don't have time. It's really difficult actually. Yeah. But we've done some work with the community gardens. So we've got the everyday gardener, everyday person on the street who isn't necessarily farming, to understand this as well on a basic level, which has been really interesting. And of course, everybody knows a farmer, and a lot of the education that we do comes from the chat in the field, So you're standing there freezing your arse off on a windy, wet, rainy day in Inishowen, and you're just chatting to the farmer about what they're doing. And then when you give them the report of their biology, you back that up with recommendations on what they can do. And you tell them about the courses, and you give them the contacts for people that they can watch. There's some fantastic information out there. So we decided we didn't need to do all of it. We don't need to.
So if I have a question, sorry, on that. If a farmer's having to use fertilizer, is that because the soil isn't able to generate healthy? So their soil's
The
not
soil is
great, like-
addicted to the external nutrient because it's the biology in the soil which determines the nutrient intake for the plant. When you put the plant in the soil, the plant doesn't take the nutrient out of the soil. The biology takes the nutrient and gives it, the plant gets it from the biology. So it's an exchange. So the plant roots give out exudates, they give out substances to keep the biology alive, and the biology swaps it. So this is really, really simplifying it, but it's the plant roots with the biology that get the nutrients, not the plant by itself. So you could have...
Yeah, I didn't know there was a biology, essentially.
Yeah, so you can have nothing, no biology in the soil. So the nutrient can't come from the soil. So it might be there, but the biology is missing. So they put fertilizer on, which is salt form. So it forces the plant through water intake to take in the nutrients.
So that's how it's
plants
grown.
On drugs.
Yeah, so it's like opening a door for the water to come in.
Yeah, sort of. It's a salt, so it's a salt form, and so the salt and water is shoved into the plant.
And
that
the
way.
reason it doesn't grow is because there is no biology.
Yeah.
So if they don't put the fertilizer, the grass isn't really going to grow.
Yeah.
Or very
poor
little.
performance. You'll still get some.
Yeah, but
there's always bacteria. There's bacteria everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's not diverse enough, and there's lots of imbalance. So,
then the result of that is you're not getting nutrient dense grass.
You're
or
not getting
plants
nutrient
or crops.
dense food. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the knock-on effect is the animal eats less nutrient
so
dense,
they're not
and then we
nutrient
eat that.
dense either.
Yeah.
And then
if we eat, or if it's of a crop, okay.
So you get that even in your commercially grown vegetables. You know, vegetable gardens, exactly the same problem. And then added to that, a lot of our food now, because we've decided that we want food whenever we want it. We want particular food whenever we want it. We don't eat seasonally anymore. So we'll quite happily go into Super Value or Lidl and buy a load of fruit and vegetables packed in plastic, which has been grown in under plastic house in south of Spain. If you go onto Google Maps and look at the south of Spain, you see the whole area is just covered in plastic. And that's where our fruit and vegetables are coming from. And the problem is that when you grow food under plastic, it doesn't have the correct light coming in. So it's missing amino acids. So even when we're buying organic tomatoes from Super Value, they are missing nutrients because they haven't been grown properly. So, and that's having a big impact on our health, which takes me back to the foraging. Because if you then go out to your doorstep and you eat nettles, you are packing in a punch of nutrient.
What does a nettle give us?
Nettle, so much that would be
These
a
are
whole
the soft,
day on
the
itself.
soft sting ones, or all of them?
Yeah, the stinging nettles.
The soft ones, because yeah.
So there's huge amounts of minerals in there, huge, and vitamins. So, and then if you combine that with eating your bitters so that you're extracting the nutrients from the food properly, you're onto
Bitters
a winner.
as in...
Dandelions. A lot of the wild greens are bitters. So you need that for your liver function and your digestive function. And then the nettles come under, I know we touched briefly on the tastes, but nettles would come under the salty taste because they are so full of minerals and iron, potassium, magnesium, zinc, like so many things that nettles give us. They're really a wonderful food. And so combine them with the bitters, really good, nutrient dense. And then you've got the sweet taste, which is very moistening and nourishing. And that would be things like oats, actually. Marshmallows, which we used to have in Inishowen, but don't have so many of. I saw a big stand of marshmallow plants down in Leitrim a few months ago, and I I got way too excited. It's like, oh, marshmallows growing in the wild.
So I'm thinking of the marshmallows that
yeah, which did originally come from the marshmallow. Sadly, no longer.
So we could make them kind of marshmallows out of them plants?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, the roots, yeah.
Very good.
So then there's the
So we could make sweets out of plants then?
Pardon?
So we could kind of make sweets out of plants, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Sweet treats, like?
Yeah, sweet treats, yeah, 100%. So, yeah, there's all these tastes, and they all perform different functions. So we got the sours, which tends to be the fruits, the berries and things would come under the sour taste. Again, they're good for the digestive system. And then what else? Salty. Oh, pungent. So pungent is things like thyme. That's our herbs. Our garden herbs would definitely be the pungent herbs, and they're very warming. So you got your sweets, oats, and which would be cooling. Sours tend to be quite cooling, and then you got your pungent herbs, which are very warming for the body. So I try and use a combination of different things at home, and my children, even though they're teenagers and practically leaving home, will still get to sort of February, March and ask when it's going to be nettle soup time. So you crave that nutrition, that building up of strength after the winter, which is what those salty herbs, those salty plants give you. Now, it's salty not because of the sodium chloride, but because of the minerals. So seaweed comes under salty as well. They're full of minerals. And they build the body up. Excuse me. So they build up your strength after the winter, So yeah, it's all interesting.
Thank you very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, Claire. It sounds like one of your foraging, I'm not sure what you call it, a foraging day or a foraging workshop, is it?
Yeah,
a workshop
walks,
would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's good crack. We don't usually get to walk very far because you see a load of things, in a short space of time. It's like, oh, but yeah.
And if someone wants to reach out to you?
Oh dear, good luck to them.
Why?
Because of my technology. No, I'm just flat out. But yeah, I'm on Facebook.
Like they can get you on Facebook.
I'm on Faceache. I call it Faceache. Facebook, yeah. What am I on there?
You have a website?
Claire Thompson, Keeper of the Ways, or Foraging Donegal. They're both me. And so you can get me on there and Instagram. And our soil work is KPM Soils. Again, we're on Facebook and that's Instagram.
A lot of work with farmers.
Yeah, a lot of work with farmers and community gardens.
Cool.
Yeah, people that are just interested in soil work. So yeah, you can get me there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Claire, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
Okay, thanks, Ryan.